So my thoughts on Centrelink. I think that like Social Security. I used to, when we came to Australia, and I discovered that there is such a thing as Centrelink because I was very soon employed working for the government in the Australian Defence Force and as a Special Forces Commando, and I looked at people that are on Centrelink as absolute filth, like cockroaches, leeches of society. And in fact, when I drove past Centrelink, or at the time it was called Social Security, which is the welfare in Australia, the agency that governs that in Australia federally, I used to yell out at those people and abuse them with because I thought it was just such a disgusting concept that they would just bludge on other people's hard-earned money and live off welfare. But then it kind of dawned on me that perhaps killing people, going overseas and killing people, I just suddenly kind of realized, well, maybe that's even worse than receiving like taxpayers' money. And so, yeah, then I had this epiphany of like, well, it just seems like values in society are just almost inverted relative to logic and morals. And if it is so valued that a young man goes off and kills other young men in foreign countries for political gain, and it is so, and society is so averse to people who just want enough freedom to not starve and to have somewhere to live, and that is regarded as just them being a leech on society. I thought, well, that's not really fair, because like, what is wrong with a person trying to move away from this concept of selling their time for money and just subsiding on minimal amounts, whilst the people who do want more than the minimal amounts can go off and earn like much larger amounts of money and give just enough to these other people just to live. So basically it protects those people on that level where they are working and they have enough money from theft, well, to the degree where these other people who choose not to work just wouldn't have any money at all. But like this with welfare, they do, which I think creates a safer society. And I think since capitalism works best with a certain percentage of unemployment rate, I think it is just actually beneficial that that whilst those people are unemployed, which provides the best form of capitalism where the economy is thriving the most, then those people should be looked after in their basic needs. And if somebody wants to just live a life less ordinary and actually just spend their time pursuing things other than making money, well, I think that as a society, those people, usually artists, like musicians and other forms of art, are actually beneficial for society. And they create a certain sort of atmosphere in the culture that I think everyone benefits from. And whether they're seen as useful and beneficial or not, I think they do have a place to create a more Western freedom exuding culture. And as a person who comes from communism, where we have universal employment, it really lacked the fact that everyone had a job. So there was universal employment, universal housing, everyone had a place, everyone had a job. It just created such complacency and such lack of motivation to actually put an effort into doing a good job, as opposed to somebody who is under the threat of losing their job, as is in capitalism. That provides a stimulus for that person to do better and for their own business to do better. There is a reason to actually excel, because in communism, no matter how much you excel, it doesn't do anything. You still have a job and you still have a place, but in a country like Australia, the more you excel, you can buy a house with 3 bedrooms or more, and I definitely therefore think that it's part of a just society and a equitable society where you take care of the people who are choosing a life of freedom, because that's what I think distinguishes the freedom in the Western countries from the lack of freedom in the countries where you are given housing, you are given employment, but there is just no opportunity for freedom. Because in communism, in our communism, the Russian communism, it was a criminal offense and you were put in jail if you were not working. And so that created this society that basically working, everything revolved around your employment, to the point where people would introduce themselves as their employment. So people would say, "Hi, I'm a pilot, I'm this," because it meant so much there. It was like you were your employment. That was your entire life. Whereas with Centrelink and with welfare, that's not the case. You can have a society where people can be not their employment, not their career, and it can be a society where there's a choice to work. So not everyone's a slave, because you have a choice. You can actually choose not to work. Whereas in an enslaved society, nobody has the choice. You have to work. And in Czechoslovakia, no matter how much money you had, you still had to work. It was illegal not to work. Whereas capitalism, you can choose not to, and that choice is the freedom that when one says this is a free country, that's a big part of that freedom, is that you don't have to work. You can say things that would normally be considered illegal. And yeah, so I think that definitely welfare has an incredibly important place in a free country.